8. Most shocking recent archaeological discoveries that left experts speechless. There are tombs that were never recorded in any history book, skeletons that remain perfectly preserved, as if time itself had stood still. And there are immense treasures that left the entire world in awe when they were finally brought back into the light. But perhaps the most haunting truth is that the more archaeologists uncover, the more they realize that many of these mysteries still have no definitive explanation. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Ancient History, the place where we dust off the forgotten pages of the past, explore some of the world's most extraordinary archaeological discoveries, and uncover true stories that are even more fascinating than any Hollywood movie. If you're captivated by the mysteries of ancient civilizations, then congratulations, you've come to the right place. In today's video, we're diving into the 8 most shocking recent archaeological discoveries that left experts speechless. You'll witness the remains of a pregnant mother and her unborn child, still lying side by side after more than 2,000 years. We'll explore the tomb of an Egyptian queen that concealed its secrets for 4,000 years. You'll see mysterious hanging coffins suspended from cliffs nearly 330 feet high, with no one still able to explain exactly how ancient people managed to place them there. And you'll discover a remarkably preserved mummy wrapped in layers of fabric and tree resin, hidden for centuries in the frozen wilderness of Siberia. Our journey will also take us to the tomb of a powerful figure from the Tiwanaku civilization, the remains of Arctic whale hunters that reveal what life was like hundreds of years ago in one of the harshest environments on Earth, the mysterious coffin of the Bagicz Princess, which reshaped archaeologists' understanding of the past, and an astonishing silver treasure weighing approximately 67 US tons that was recovered from the floor of the Atlantic Ocean after spending more than 7 decades lost in darkness. Every discovery is another missing piece of history. Some stories inspire admiration for the remarkable ingenuity of ancient civilizations. Others fill us with sorrow as we reflect on the lives of people who lived thousands of years ago. And some mysteries remain so profound that despite all the advances of modern technology, scientists can do little more than propose theories without finding a final answer. So what really happened to these people? What stories are the surviving artifacts trying to tell us? And which discovery will leave you the most deeply moved? Join Ancient History as we travel back through time and begin this incredible journey right now. 1,300-year-old mummy found inside a fabric cocoon in Siberia. Have you ever wondered how a human body could remain undisturbed for more than 1,300 years in the unforgiving frozen wilderness of Siberia and still be preserved so remarkably well that it left scientists astonished? And what if that mummy was discovered alongside the remains of an infant only about 6 months old, with both bodies wrapped in mysterious materials unlike anything archaeologists had ever encountered? If you've ever asked yourself those questions but never found an answer, then let's travel back in time to early July 2015. It was during that time that scientists from Russia's Arctic Research Center were conducting excavations at the ancient Siberia.Our burial ground in Siberia, near the edge of the Russian Arctic. There, they uncovered a remarkably preserved mummy dating back approximately 1,300 years. The body had been preserved using a method unlike anything previously documented, and this extraordinary discovery has helped answer many of the questions we just raised. According to the experts, the mummy belonged to an adult who was not buried in a wooden or stone coffin, as was common in many other ancient cultures. Instead, the body was carefully enclosed inside a cocoon made of multiple layers of thick fabric, covered with copper plates and animal fur. This discovery immediately captured the attention of archaeologists because of its highly unusual burial method, while also revealing the complex funeral rituals practiced by the ancient people who once lived in this harsh, frozen landscape. But here's what truly surprised the research team. It wasn't just the mummy itself, it was what lay beside it. Next to the adult's remains were the skeletal remains of an infant less than 6 months old, buried in the same orientation as the adult. According to the researchers, both bodies were positioned along a north-south axis, with their feet pointing toward the nearby Gorny Polui River. The adult's body was wrapped in large copper plates, while the infant had been placed inside the broken pieces of a copper cauldron, suggesting that each individual was buried according to a unique and carefully performed ritual. These seemingly minor details are now helping archaeologists piece together the story of a civilization that disappeared thousands of years ago. However, the mystery didn't end there. Alexander Gusev, a member of the research team, explained that both bodies had been enclosed within a cocoon made of thick fabric combined with a liquid extracted through the distillation of birch bark. Scientists believe this unique compound played a crucial role in preserving the bodies for more than a millennium. However, the exact composition of the embalming substance remains unknown and can only be determined through detailed laboratory analysis. Based on the cocoon's length of approximately 5 feet 7 inches, experts estimate that the adult inside stood about 5 feet 5 inches tall during life. They also suspect that the people buried at the site may have belonged to an ancient civilization with connections to Persia, opening up new theories about trade routes and cultural exchanges that existed more than 1,000 years ago. After the excavation was completed, the entire mummy was transported to a laboratory in Tyumen, Russia, where specialists continued their investigation to determine the individual's sex, age, and the species of animal whose fur had been used to keep the deceased warm during the journey into the afterlife. Perhaps the secrets hidden inside this extraordinary fabric cocoon are only the tip of the iceberg. Every new laboratory analysis has the potential to reshape what we know about a civilization that has remained silent for more than 1,300 years. 1,300-year-old tomb. Inside the Tiwanaku pyramid, the royal treasure that escaped centuries of looting. Can you believe it if I told you that a tomb remained untouched for nearly 1,300 years, surviving countless wars, brutal raids by invading armies, and the relentless destruction of time? Yet when it was finally opened, it still contained dazzling gold treasures that left the entire archaeological community in awe. Even more astonishing, the person buried inside does not appear to have been an ordinary individual. He may have been a powerful king who once ruled over a vast empire, or perhaps a high-ranking priest entrusted with the sacred secrets of an ancient civilization. It may sound unbelievable, but this remarkable story is absolutely true. Everything began on May 2nd, when archaeologists started excavations at the Acapana pyramid within the Tiwanaku archaeological site in western Bolivia. This site was once the heart of one of South America's most powerful civilizations, long before Europeans ever set foot on the continent. As researchers explored deeper into the ancient structure, they uncovered a mysterious tomb hidden inside the pyramid itself. Believe it or not, the tomb's location alone was enough to convince experts that the individual buried there must have held an extraordinarily high status. According to archaeologist Javier Escalante, who officially announced the discovery during a press conference held near the excavation site, the human remains were found inside a burial niche embedded deep within the pyramid's wall, which stands approximately 49 feet tall. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is that the massive Acapana pyramid was built around 1200 BC and was once considered the largest architectural structure in the region during the pre-Columbian era. From the top of the pyramid, ancient inhabitants could overlook the entire city of Tiwanaku, which covered roughly 1.5 square miles and was once home to more than 100,000 people. Its sheer scale demonstrates just how advanced and prosperous this civilization once was. But the greatest surprise was waiting inside the newly opened tomb. Archaeologist Roger Angel Casio, who personally discovered the burial chamber, explained that the skeleton had remained remarkably well preserved despite being approximately 1,300 years old. Based on the burial location and the artifacts found alongside the remains, he believes the individual was most likely either a king or a high-ranking priest who occupied one of the highest positions in Tiwanaku society. According to Casio, not just anyone was granted the privilege of being buried inside the Acapana pyramid. The resting place itself clearly reflects the extraordinary status of the deceased. Even more astonishing were the priceless treasures that had somehow survived centuries of relentless looting. Experts explain that the Tiwanaku region was repeatedly plundered by Spanish invaders, and countless treasures were taken away over the centuries. Because of this, many historians believed there was little of value left to discover. Yet, almost miraculously, this tomb remained hidden and untouched for hundreds of years. Inside, archaeologists uncovered a magnificent gold crown along with a solid gold pendant, exquisitely crafted and measuring nearly the size of the palm of a hand. These precious artifacts not only showcase the exceptional metalworking skills of the Tiwanaku people, but also serve as powerful symbols of the authority and prestige held by the tomb's owner. The discoveries did not end there. Also found inside the tomb was a llama, an animal deeply connected to the daily life of the ancient Andean people. According to archaeologist Casio, the llama was not merely a valuable possession, it also held profound spiritual significance. The Tiwanaku believed the animal would accompany the deceased into the afterlife and provide nourishment during the journey to the next world. This belief gave rise to a truly unique burial ritual, one that reflects the worldview and religious traditions of a civilization that once flourished across the Andes. As you can see, after centuries of being buried beneath the earth and surviving the relentless search of treasure hunters, this tomb endured like a miracle of history. Every artifact, every piece of gold jewelry, and every bone recovered from the site is helping tell the story of an empire that dominated the Andean highlands more than 1,000 years ago. Isn't that absolutely fascinating? The tomb of an Egyptian queen. After more than 4,000 years, the coffin remained, but the body vanished without a trace. It all began on February 2, 1925. While George Reisner had returned to Boston, Massachusetts to teach at Harvard University, the expedition's photographer, Mohammedani Ibrahim, continued working near the pyramid of Pharaoh Khufu, the monument constructed around the middle of the 3rd millennium BC. As Ibrahim was setting up his camera, he suddenly noticed that one of the tripod's legs was resting on a patch of white plaster exposed through the sand. That tiny detail immediately made him suspect that an undiscovered structure might be buried beneath the desert surface. Unable to wait for Reisner's return, the rest of the expedition decided to begin excavating. After many days of careful work, they uncovered a narrow burial shaft descending approximately 85 feet underground. The shaft was filled with loose rubble, but every indication suggested they had found an ancient tomb. Their excitement, however, was quickly mixed with concern. As you probably know, the Giza Plateau had been repeatedly plundered by tomb robbers over thousands of years. The chances of discovering an untouched royal tomb were considered almost impossible. Unfortunately, just as the team was preparing to continue their excavation, a telegram arrived from Boston ordering all work to stop immediately. As a result, the tomb, designated G7000X, was sealed until the expedition's director could return. Few people realized that George Reisner was one of the world's most respected Egyptologists at the time. Before this discovery, he had directed numerous major archaeological surveys throughout Nubia, the region that stretches across southern Egypt and present-day Sudan. Then, in 1902, the French Egyptologist Gaston Maspero divided the entire Giza Plateau into separate excavation zones and assigned each one to leading specialists. His goal was to prevent tomb robbery while ensuring the preservation of Egypt's ancient monuments. Thanks to that decision, Reisner was given responsibility for the central section of the plateau, the very area that would later produce one of archaeology's most astonishing discoveries. In January 1926, after completing his work in the United States, Reisner returned to Egypt and reopened Tomb G7000X, but the moment he entered the main burial chamber, he could not hide his disappointment. Much of the gold-covered wooden furniture had been severely damaged by water over thousands of years. The condition of the chamber had deteriorated so badly that Reisner feared it could collapse at any moment. Even so, the archaeological team patiently collected every fragment of wood, every decorative inlay, and every tiny artifact with extraordinary care. That patience was richly rewarded. Inside the tomb, the researchers gradually uncovered a ceremonial canopy, a bed, an armchair, and an exquisitely crafted royal carrying chair. Most importantly, the carrying chair still bore the name Hetepheres, allowing archaeologists to identify the tomb's owner as Queen Hetepheres, the mother of Pharaoh Khufu, the king who commissioned the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It turned out that for more than 4,000 years, her resting place had remained hidden beneath the shadow of ancient Egypt's greatest monument. Yet the real mystery emerged only after experts opened the finely crafted alabaster sarcophagus in March 1927. Everyone was stunned. There were no human remains inside. The coffin was still there. The funerary treasures were still there, but the queen's body had vanished without leaving a single trace. From that moment on, the fate of Queen Hetepheres became one of Egyptology's greatest unsolved mysteries. George Reisner proposed that the queen had originally been buried near her husband, Pharaoh Sneferu, at Dashur. Later, when Khufu built the new royal cemetery at Giza, her burial was supposedly intended to be moved there. However, for some unknown reason, her body may never have been transferred. Other scholars, however, believe she was actually buried in the small pyramid known as G1A, located beside the Great Pyramid. To this day, these remain only theories, and no evidence has been found that conclusively proves either one. What we do know is that following the historic excavation, many of the artifacts from the tomb were painstakingly restored. Queen Hetepheres's armchair is now on display at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, while her gold-covered carrying chair, after undergoing extensive restoration, is preserved at the Harvard Museum of the Ancient Near East in Cambridge, Massachusetts. If you ever have the opportunity, visiting these museums in person offers a remarkable chance to admire these extraordinary treasures and experience a tangible connection to one of ancient Egypt's greatest mysteries. The 400-year-old skeletons of Arctic whalers reveal a hellish life few people ever knew about. My friend, have you ever wondered what people had to sacrifice to hunt massive whales in the icy waters of the Arctic before modern ships, powerful engines, and today's protective gear existed? Honestly, just imagining men rowing small wooden boats straight toward creatures weighing dozens of tons while battling blizzards and freezing seas is enough to give me chills. But the reality becomes even more horrifying when you learn what archaeologists have uncovered. In recent years, archaeologists have excavated and studied the Likneset Cemetery on Norway's Svalbard archipelago, a site considered the largest burial ground of whalers who once worked in the Arctic. The cemetery dates back to the 17th century, when the European whaling industry was entering one of its most prosperous periods. However, this excavation is about much more than history. According to the researchers, they are racing against time because climate change is causing the Arctic permafrost to thaw. As the frozen ground melts, the cemetery is gradually eroding, threatening to destroy priceless evidence that has survived for centuries. Likneset is the final resting place of hundreds of men who lost their lives while hunting whales in the freezing Arctic Ocean. Throughout the cemetery, archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of shallow graves marked only by simple piles of stones. There are no elaborate headstones or grand monuments, just the quiet traces of men who spent their lives confronting one of the harshest environments on Earth. Each grave serves as another piece of the puzzle, helping researchers reconstruct the incredibly difficult lives of sailors who lived nearly 4 centuries ago. On May 20th, the results of the study were published in the scientific journal PLOS1, immediately drawing the attention of archaeologists around the world. After examining 20 graves at Likneset, the research team discovered that most of the men buried there died relatively young and had endured lives of relentless physical hardship. According to Liselott 2, an archaeologist at the Norwegian Institute for Cultural Heritage Research and the study's lead author, Arctic whaling during the early modern period was one of Europe's first large-scale commercial industries. Yet nearly every task relied entirely on human strength. Every hunting expedition was essentially a fight for survival. The men spent countless hours rowing through freezing seas, approaching enormous whales before striking them with hand-thrown harpoons. Afterward, they still had to haul the massive whale carcasses, weighing dozens of tons, back to their ships, tow them ashore to process the blubber, and continue performing countless physically demanding tasks aboard the vessels while enduring freezing temperatures, constant moisture, and brutal working conditions. The job required extraordinary physical strength, but it also left permanent marks on their bodies. The strongest evidence came from the skeletal remains themselves. Researchers found widespread signs of arthritis, chronic injuries, and long-term physical stress affecting the shoulders, rib cages, spines, hips, knees, and feet. These injuries reveal years of exhausting labor under some of the harshest environmental conditions imaginable. Simply by examining the skeletons, scientists can picture the incredibly difficult lives these whalers endured. Perhaps the most significant discovery, however, was evidence of scurvy, the disease caused by a severe vitamin C deficiency. Most of the skeletons displayed classic symptoms associated with the disease, including muscle weakness, bleeding gums, tooth loss, anemia, and numerous other serious health problems. Today, scurvy is extremely rare thanks to the widespread availability of fresh fruits and vegetables, but from the 15th century through the middle of the 19th century, it was one of the greatest fears of sailors who spent months at sea. Unfortunately, Europeans at the time did not understand what caused the disease. As a result, many refused to eat foods that the indigenous peoples of the Arctic had relied upon for generations to prevent it. One such food was muktuk, a traditional dish made from whale skin and blubber that contains large amounts of both vitamin C and vitamin D. Had these sailors been willing to adopt this local food source, many of them might have avoided the devastating disease that claimed the health and often the lives of countless seafarers. According to archaeologist Lise Locke, scurvy not only damages the bones but also weakens the immune system, slows wound healing, and dramatically reduces the body's endurance. It may have been one of the major reasons so many of these men were unable to survive the brutal conditions of the Arctic. Researchers also discovered another fascinating clue preserved in their teeth. Most of the skeletons displayed small circular indentations in the tooth enamel, indicating that the men regularly clenched clay tobacco pipes between their teeth. This smoking habit is believed to have reduced vitamin C levels even further, unintentionally making their scurvy much more severe. Today, when archaeologists stand before the silent skeletons at Likeneset, they are not simply looking at the remains of people who died centuries ago. They are reading an entire chapter of history, a story of unimaginable hardship, sacrifice, and survival during the age of Arctic whaling. And perhaps that finally answers the question we began with. Before modern ships, powerful engines, and advanced protective equipment existed, what did people have to sacrifice to hunt enormous whales in the frozen waters of the Arctic? The answer is truly haunting. What do you think? Do you see it the same way, or do you have a different perspective? If so, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the discussion. 2,000-year-old coffin. Containing the Princess of Mystery, more than a century later, scientists finally discovered the truth. The story began in 1899 in the village of Bagicz, located in northwestern Poland. After years of erosion caused by ocean waves and strong coastal winds, a cliff along the shoreline suddenly collapsed, exposing an ancient wooden coffin that tumbled down from the cliff face. This extraordinary discovery quickly attracted the attention of archaeologists, who arrived at the site shortly afterward. When they opened the coffin, they found the remains of an adult woman, along with numerous artifacts that had been preserved in remarkably good condition. The unusual burial method and the valuable objects buried alongside her led experts to give her the mysterious nickname, the Princess of Bagicz, even though no evidence has ever been found proving that she actually held royal status. For many decades afterward, archaeologists generally agreed that the woman had died during the Roman period, based on the style and craftsmanship of the artifacts buried with her. However, the more scientists studied the discovery, the more unanswered questions emerged. The first mystery involved the coffin itself. Coffins carved from a single tree trunk are extremely rare because wood normally decays over the course of thousands of years. Yet the Bagicz coffin survived thanks to the damp soil conditions in which it had been buried. As a result, it became the only surviving wooden coffin from the Roman Iron Age ever discovered in this region. On February 9th, a study published in the scientific journal Archaeological revealed several surprising new findings. Researchers reported that both the coffin and its lid had been crafted from the same tree trunk, demonstrating a remarkably sophisticated level of craftsmanship. Inside the coffin, in addition to the woman's skeletal remains, archaeologists found a cowhide used as a burial lining, along with numerous valuable grave goods, including a bronze pin, necklaces made of glass beads and amber, and a pair of bronze bracelets. Together, these objects suggest that the woman held a special status during her lifetime. Beginning in the 1980s, archaeologists estimated, based on the style of the grave goods, that the Princess of Bagicz had died sometime between AD 110 and AD 160. This conclusion was considered highly convincing and was widely accepted by experts. Everything changed unexpectedly in 2018. Scientists performed radiocarbon dating on one of the woman's teeth, and the results suggested that she may have died between 113 BC and AD 65, nearly 300 years earlier than the artifacts found in her coffin. The enormous discrepancy immediately created a mystery that puzzled archaeologists. If the radiocarbon analysis was correct, it would mean that the grave goods had been placed in the coffin hundreds of years after the woman's death. But such a scenario seemed highly unlikely within the context of an ancient burial ritual. To resolve this contradiction, a research team led by archaeologist Marta Chmiel-Krzyżanowska of the University of Szczecin in Poland decided to examine the coffin itself rather than focus solely on the skeleton. The researchers extracted a tiny core sample from the wood and analyzed it using dendrochronology, commonly known as tree ring dating. After comparing the sample with a database of ancient trees from northwestern Poland, the team determined that the oak tree used to create the coffin had been felled around AD 120. They also concluded that the coffin was likely crafted shortly after the tree was cut down. This discovery completely changed how researchers viewed the Princess of Bagicz. If the coffin was made around AD 120 and the grave goods dated to the same period, then it became increasingly likely that the radiocarbon date obtained from the tooth was the inaccurate result. According to the researchers, the discrepancy may have been caused by the woman's diet or the water she consumed during her lifetime. Such factors can sometimes alter the carbon isotope ratios within the body, leading to radiocarbon dates that are not entirely accurate. Today, more than a century has passed since the ancient coffin accidentally fell from the seaside cliff, yet the story of the Princess of Bagicz remains far from finished. Each new scientific technique brings researchers closer to the truth while reminding us that archaeology is not simply about digging up buried artifacts. It is also a never-ending process of testing evidence, asking new questions, and uncovering secrets that history has hidden for more than 2,000 years. Perhaps many mysteries surrounding this remarkable woman still remain to be revealed. Until then, we can only continue following the investigation and wait to see what future discoveries may uncover. The body of a Roman girl and a treasure of gold, found inside a 1,700-year-old lead coffin, revealing secrets never before known. Can you imagine a lead coffin lying deep underground for nearly 1,700 years, yet still protecting the body of a young girl, along with a stunning collection of gold jewelry in remarkably preserved condition? It sounds almost unbelievable, doesn't it? But that's the fascinating nature of archaeology. It never stops surprising us, and this discovery is no exception. While surveying an ancient cemetery at the pagan burial cave in the city of Jerusalem, Israel, experts from the Israel Antiquities Authority unexpectedly uncovered a large burial complex containing numerous remarkably well-preserved remains. Among the many artifacts discovered, however, one tomb immediately captured everyone's attention. It was a Roman-era burial dating back approximately 1,700 years. Inside was a lead coffin, a type of coffin that was extremely rare because of its high production cost and was typically reserved for people of high social standing or wealthy families. When the coffin was opened after nearly 2 millennia, the archaeologists were left speechless. Inside lay the body of a young woman, preserved in far better condition than anyone had anticipated. Yet what astonished the research team even more were the objects placed around the deceased. Instead of containing only a few simple belongings, as was common in many ancient burials, this young woman had been laid to rest with an entire collection of exquisitely crafted gold jewelry, suggesting that she may have belonged to a wealthy family or held a special position within Roman society. The artifacts included a pair of gold earrings, a gold hairpin, a gold pendant, as well as numerous carefully crafted gold beads, agate beads, and glass beads. Despite spending nearly 1,700 years beneath the earth, many of these objects have retained their extraordinary beauty, reflecting the exceptional craftsmanship of ancient Roman artisans. Simply by examining the intricate details of each piece, experts can appreciate the tremendous value these ornaments must once have held for their owner. Even more remarkable is the fact that several pieces of jewelry feature the symbol of Luna, the moon goddess in ancient Roman religion. According to researchers, Luna represented far more than the light that illuminated the night sky. She was also regarded as a divine protector who guided and watched over people throughout their lives. For this reason, experts believe these pieces of jewelry most likely accompanied the young woman throughout her lifetime. When she died, her family appears to have buried all of her treasured jewelry alongside her body, believing that these precious objects would continue to protect her spirit as she journeyed into the afterlife. This discovery has also provided valuable new insights into Roman burial customs in the Jerusalem region during the 3rd century AD. Rather than simply burying the dead, Roman families placed spiritually meaningful objects inside the tomb. Each item represented far more than material wealth. It reflected the love of surviving family members, as well as their deep belief in life after death. For archaeologists, this lead coffin is much more than a rare artifact. It serves almost like a time machine, allowing scientists to better understand the daily life, religious beliefs, and culture of the Roman community that lived in Jerusalem nearly 1,700 years ago. The use of a lead coffin, a material rarely found in ordinary burials, also suggests that the young woman's family possessed considerable wealth or held an important position within society. Unfortunately, to this day, the young woman's true identity remains one of the greatest unanswered questions. Even so, thanks to the remarkably well-preserved artifacts buried with her, archaeologists are gradually piecing together the story of her life. Perhaps in the future, DNA analysis and more advanced scientific studies will reveal even more secrets hidden within this ancient lead coffin, helping us better understand the life of a young woman who lived nearly 2,000 years ago, yet continues to leave a lasting impression on us today. Until then, we'll simply have to wait and see what future discoveries reveal. 2,000-year-old tomb containing the body of a pregnant woman in a shocking burial position. History often remembers great emperors, legendary battles, and mighty empires that once ruled vast territories. But sometimes it is an anonymous tomb that has the power to change everything we thought we knew about the past. Beneath layers of earth that have remained undisturbed for more than 2,000 years, every skeleton carries an untold story, and every artifact has the potential to unlock secrets that time has tried to conceal. A remarkable example comes from an archaeological excavation at a Warring States period noble cemetery complex in China's Shanxi province. There, archaeologists uncovered one tomb that stood out from all the others because of its enormous size and its prominent location at the center of the cemetery. From the very beginning, experts believed that the person buried there must have held an exceptionally high status in society more than 2,000 years ago. Yet no one could have imagined that once the final layer of soil was removed, the discovery inside would reveal an even greater mystery. After completing the excavation, archaeologists determined that the tomb extended approximately 33 feet below the surface. Based on their experience, tombs buried at such a depth are usually subjected to enormous pressure from thousands of years of accumulated soil, often leaving skeletons crushed or severely deteriorated. But incredibly, the skeleton inside this tomb had remained almost completely intact. The remarkable state of preservation astonished the entire research team because such a phenomenon is extremely rare in archaeology. However, the truly shocking discovery came when the experts carefully examined the lower abdomen of the skeleton. There, they found the tiny bones of a fetus, indicating that the woman had died while approximately 8 months pregnant. This extraordinary discovery immediately became the focus of attention throughout the archaeological community. A flood of questions followed. Who was this woman? Why did she die at such a young age? And what happened to the unborn child who never had the chance to enter the world? To find answers, the researchers handled every step of the preservation process with extraordinary care. Recognizing the exceptional scientific value of the remains, they transported the entire skeleton to the Shanxi Provincial Institute of Archaeology, where it could be studied using modern physical anthropology techniques. Although the skeleton appeared remarkably well preserved from the outside, more than 2,000 years of burial had left the bones severely weathered and extremely fragile. Even the slightest impact could have caused them to crumble. For that reason, the excavation team erected a specialized protective tent directly over the burial site to shield the remains from sunlight and minimize environmental damage during the excavation. After analyzing the skeletal features, experts determined that the tomb belonged to a woman who was approximately 30 years old. They also confirmed that the small bones found in her abdomen did indeed belong to a fetus. But what surprised them most was the position in which the woman had been buried. One of her hands rested gently across her lower abdomen, as though she were still embracing the unborn child she carried, while her other hand lay naturally beside her body. This burial posture is extraordinarily rare and has almost never been documented in excavations from the same historical period. Naturally, several theories quickly emerged. Some researchers suggested that she may have died during childbirth. Others believed the unusual position reflected a special burial ritual reserved for members of the noble class. However, after carefully examining the fetal skeleton, experts quickly ruled out the childbirth theory. The fetus's head had not yet descended into the mother's pelvis, indicating that labor had not actually begun. This strongly suggests that the woman's death was likely caused by something entirely unrelated to childbirth. To continue their investigation, the research team decided to conduct DNA testing on both the mother and the fetus. Their goal was not simply to confirm their biological relationship, which was already obvious, but also to reconstruct the genetic profile of the noble class of the state of Jin during the Warring States period. Such information could provide valuable clues about the family's ancestry, physical appearance, and even diseases that may have affected both mother and child. The process, however, is far from simple. Because the bones have become porous and turned dark gray after thousands of years, researchers must grind a small portion of the bone into powder in order to extract usable DNA. If successful, modern technology could potentially reconstruct many of their physical characteristics, including hair color, eye color, and whether they carried inherited disorders, infectious diseases, or even traces of ancient viruses. Even so, both the DNA analysis and the facial and physical reconstruction require an enormous amount of time and absolute precision. To this day, the true cause of this pregnant woman's death remains an unsolved mystery. Perhaps it is precisely this silence, preserved for more than 2,000 years, that makes this tomb one of the most haunting and mysterious archaeological discoveries ever made. It reminds us that beneath every layer of ancient earth lie stories still waiting for modern science to uncover. 61 tons of silver beneath the Atlantic Ocean, the record-breaking recovery of a World War II shipwrecked treasure. Can you believe that nearly 3 miles beneath the surface of the Atlantic Ocean, there were treasures worth tens of millions of dollars lying undisturbed for more than 70 years? What's even more fascinating is that this isn't a pirate legend or a fictional Hollywood adventure. It's the true story of a treasure recovery mission that captured the attention of the entire world. More than 61 tons of pure silver, resting beneath the crushing pressure of the deep ocean, seem destined to remain buried forever alongside the wreck of a wartime cargo ship. Yet through modern technology and years of relentless determination, a professional treasure hunting team accomplished what many had once considered impossible. Not only did they bring the treasure back to the surface, but they also set a world record unlike anything previously achieved in the history of deep-sea salvage. So what happened to the ship? Why was it carrying such an enormous amount of silver? And just how dangerous was the mission to conquer the depths of the Atlantic Ocean? Let's dive into this incredible story. The story begins when Odyssey Marine Exploration, a company specializing in deep-sea treasure recovery headquartered in Tampa, Florida, officially announced an achievement that sent shockwaves through both the marine archaeology community and the commercial salvage industry. In 2013, after years of planning and carrying out the project, the company announced that it had successfully recovered 61 tons of silver bullion from the wreck of the SS Garsoppa, a British cargo ship sunk during World War II. The discovery represented not only an extraordinary financial success, but also a historic milestone in the recovery of treasure from the ocean floor. According to Odyssey president Mark Gordon, the operation established a world record. He stated that it was the first time in history that such an enormous quantity of precious metal had ever been successfully recovered from such an extreme depth. Simply reaching the wreck was an enormous challenge. The ship had rested undisturbed for decades in one of the harshest environments humanity has ever attempted to explore. According to precious metals experts, the 61 tons of silver recovered from the wreck were worth an estimated more than $36 million at the time of the recovery. But the true value of the treasure extends far beyond its price. The mission demonstrated the extraordinary progress made in deep-sea exploration technology, remotely operated robotic vehicles, and humanity's ability to reach places that were once considered virtually inaccessible. To understand how this treasure ended up on the ocean floor, we have to go back to February 1941, during one of the darkest periods of World War II. At that time, the SS Garsoppa, a British steel-hulled cargo ship measuring approximately 410 feet in length, was transporting cargo when it was struck by a torpedo fired from a German submarine. Within a short time, the ship, and the entire cargo of silver aboard, sank to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean approximately 300 miles off the coast of Ireland. From that day forward, the massive treasure rested nearly 3 miles beneath the surface, where water pressure is hundreds of times greater than at sea level and sunlight never reaches. Just imagine what conditions are like at that depth. Even today's most advanced deep-sea submersibles face enormous risks. A single mistake could destroy equipment worth millions of dollars. For that reason, Odyssey invested millions of dollars before knowing whether the project would ever succeed. According to Mark Gordon, it was one of the biggest gambles the company had ever taken. After numerous extended recovery operations on the ocean floor, Odyssey finally achieved its objective. The company reported that it successfully recovered approximately 99% of the silver still remaining inside the wreck. Under an agreement with the British government, Odyssey was allowed to retain 80% of the treasure's value, while all of the recovered silver was transported to a secure location in the United Kingdom for storage and processing. The operation's tremendous success also inspired even greater ambitions. Mark Gordon revealed that Odyssey planned to continue investing in future deep-sea treasure recovery projects. According to estimates from the United Nations, there are currently around 3 million shipwrecks scattered across the world's oceans. Many of these wrecks still contain valuable cargo, precious metals, and historically significant artifacts worth billions of dollars, all waiting to be discovered. Dear friends, we've now reached the end of our journey through 8 of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries in recent years. I hope this fascinating adventure has shown you that every skeleton, every mummy, every ancient tomb, and every priceless artifact is far more than just a silent relic of the past. Each one serves as a witness to history, preserving remarkable stories about the lives, beliefs, and destinies of people who lived thousands of years ago. And who knows, at this very moment, countless other secrets may still be waiting to be uncovered beneath the earth or deep beneath the ocean. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which of these discoveries impressed you the most? Let us know by leaving a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the Ancient History channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming journeys into the mysteries of the past. For now, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.